Welcome to the Trust Factor Podcast, the only podcast that guarantees your success when you implement its divine age-old teachings. Good morning, everybody. TGIF. It's the Friday before Passover, a very important Passover. There's so much going on in the world. All the indicators are pointing to the fact that we are living in unprecedented times. We've taken out Amalek, the leader of that nation that we are commanded to take out. Israel did it. They did it this year, leading in to this Passover. That's not coincidence, my friends. We are running down the clock on time. And this Passover, this Nisan, is going to be a game changer. If you're looking for outright miracles, maybe you'll find them. Maybe you will. I don't know how he runs the world. I have no idea what the big boss is planning. But generally speaking, those miracles are not outright bending of nature. They are mixed in to nature. So you have to be dialed in. You need to be tuned in, and you need to be looking for God's hand. And if you're looking, you will find it, my friend, guaranteed. Let's get back to what we've been discussing over here. We're talking about people in the positions of authority. When that position is viewed in the proper perspective, authority is a mission from above. Anybody in a position of authority should know that God handpicked you for that position. And that means that he is testing you in ways that he doesn't test a lot of the population. Most people don't have those tests. So if you find yourself as a teacher, if you find yourself as a police officer, if you find yourself as a judge or as a prison warden, or whatever the positions are that are above other people, and your choices will shape the day or the year or the life of that individual who is serving you, then you should make every effort to do good for them and to perform God's task faithfully. Any trace of haughtiness, your ego, if it gets in the way, that's when you fail. Your success goes out the window. Remember, your job, my friends, all of our jobs, is to emulate Hashem. I don't know if you've ever been told that before, but that is our purpose. Our 30,000-foot purpose is to emulate our Creator. How do we emulate him? How do I know who he is? In order for me to emulate him, first I need to know who he is, right? When I was a kid, I wanted to be like Michael Jackson. He was my idol. And I would dance like him, and I would try and sing like him, and I would try and dress like him, because I knew who Michael Jackson was. I saw him a million times. I knew every one of his outfits. I could purchase them. I knew all of his songs by heart. I knew all of his dance moves. I could do all of the things that he could do, granted not nearly as good, not even close, but I could try to emulate him. And sometimes I did a better job than others, but I first need to know who I'm emulating before I emulate him. And so how do I know who God is? How do I know what these character traits are? How do I know how to be godlike? And the answer is, he's already told us. There are attributes that God gave us that made it very clear who he is. It's in the Torah. It's in black and white. And we all know it because we say it every day in our prayers. Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum Vechanon, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet. That passage that we say often in our prayers, if you understand what you're saying, you'll know that what you are saying are character traits. That he's God, that he's powerful, that he's merciful, that he's slow to anger. All of these different character traits are in there, and it's incumbent upon you and I to learn what those words mean. Because when you understand those words, then you understand who he is on a 30,000-foot level, of course. And then you can put mechanisms in place to become like him. Become slow to anger. So if you're a teacher and your students are getting on your nerves, and you find that your patience is wearing thin, in your older age or in your young age, whatever it is, you find that you are very quick to anger and you know that you need to improve, then that is one place for you to focus your energy on. Become slow to anger. How do you do that? We've said this before. You go to the opposite extreme. You operate in the realm where you are unnaturally patient. You're more patient than any other teacher in your school. That teachers will look at you and go, how do you do that? How do you have so much patience? How have you not flown off the handle by now? Go over there for a little while. Sit in that position where you're too patient, that nothing phases you, and nobody can get a rise out of you. And then eventually you will find balance. That's how it works, right? If you are not generous Go to the opposite extreme. Instead of giving 10% away every year, give 20. Double it up. Do that for a little while. See how that sits with you. And eventually, you'll come back to center. That's how it works, my friends. But know that if you're in a position of power, you are all the more so required to emulate Hashem. Take those tools, those 13 attributes that God gives us of himself, and work on them every day in your life. Because the stakes for you are that much higher. The average person that doesn't have those responsibilities and those powers and authority over other people, they don't have a fraction of the risks that you have. When they fail, the implication is bad, but it's not nearly as bad as yours. Yours is compounded. It's exponentially greater. At the same time, your reward is also exponentially greater. Each of us must remember that we are only an extension of Hashem's long arm. We can choose to be the hand that strokes and comforts, or the hand that strikes. We can either be the Creator's cane for the elderly to lean on, or the Creator's disciplinary rod. But don't forget, the cane will be awarded for doing good, and the rod will be punished for hurting people. That is the differentiator. That is what we constantly need to remember. Especially when you've been put in a position of power, you need to constantly remind yourself that it is not inconsequential. It is not an opportunity for you to choose favorites. It is not an opportunity for you to punish the ones that you don't like. If that's the position you come with, then in kind, your life will be affected. God will do with you exactly what you do with those people who you rule over, who you have authority over. So don't forget it, because that's the only thing that's going to keep you in check. So what mechanisms can you put in place to assist you if you find that you're that person in a position of authority? Extra prayer. That's it. We all have to pray. Everybody has an obligation to pray to their Creator to put their minds in check. An individual in a position of authority has that much more of an obligation. So that person, if that's you, set aside an additional hour every day, even if it's smack center in the middle of your day. Take that hour and maximize it, because you need that extra help to make sure that you're not the rod in God's hand running around smacking people, that you're actually the cane in the hand of the elderly. And it's clear as day to see, guys. You know what I'm talking about. If your eyes are open and you're watching these quote unquote influencers, know with absolute certainty, you don't have to know who these people are. You simply don't have to know. I can guarantee for you, that Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, all these people who I hate to say their names even to give them any credibility, but they're real and they have to be addressed. You know, even if you don't know, that they are rotten people to the core. Why? Because they're charged with bringing negativity into the world. They're given the rod. They have a staff in their hand. That's the microphone. That's the publicity, the fame, the fortune, the ability to influence. That's the rod in their hand. What they do with it is their choice that reflects on who their character is. They choose to beat society down with it. They choose to inject into the world negativity and hate and fear and confusion. And they do a really good job of that because they're really negative, nasty people. At their root, at their core, that's who they are. I can bet whatever you want. I don't care who comes out and placates them. I don't care who comes out and sings their praises about how wonderful they are and they're my good friend and they give so much charity and yada yada. Not true. That's just people stroking their ego because they want to get in their good books. They're people who are using the rod in their hands that God gave them in order to beat people down are simply evil people. It's not my idea. It's in the book right here. It's very clear. You can see the actions of the individual reflect on who that person is. Then you look at somebody like a Ben Shapiro. You look at somebody like Ben, who's the unofficial defender of conservatism and Israel and the Jewish nation. And you see that all he's busy doing is putting goodness into this world. All he's busy doing is building us up and giving us good information and facts and data and not emotional junk, not the stuff that just asks questions. He's the guy that gives answers. You'll notice if you look at the two different sides, you'll see a stark difference. That difference is that the people who are evil, all they do is ask questions. And in the question is buried their message. Their position is very much buried in the question. There's no coincidence that they're asking the questions that they're asking and how they'll never give you answers. They'll just deposit confusion in your mind in the way of questions. Sometimes these questions are so elementary that even a 5-year-old knows the answer to them. But it's not the question, it's how it was asked. And these people have perfected the art of confusing humanity and making you ask questions that you shouldn't even be asking. And then when you look at somebody like a Ben Shapiro, all he's doing all day long is answering questions, giving you data, giving you science, giving you real facts that you can sink your teeth into and go, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Ben. That's why when you walk away from hearing Ben Shapiro for an hour, you feel fulfilled. You feel like you're educated, like you've won something, you've gained, you're happy. You have a dopamine release because things make sense. 1 and 1 equals 2, and you go away happy. When you listen to the other people, the wicked, the evil people of the world, you come away upset. You come away miserable. You come away with questions. Your eyebrows are furrowed. You're not happy. That's what happens when you listen to these people who are evil. And I could tell you, I've never met Ben. I don't know the guy, but I can guarantee you that he is a good person because all he's doing is occupying himself with bringing good truth into this world. Now, if he wanted to, whatever amount of money you say he's making, yeah, Jesse, okay, but he's making a truckload of money, so it's easy to be Ben Shapiro. Let me tell you something. If Ben wanted to cross the aisle, if Ben wanted to join the other side, and I can assure you he has been approached many times, there would be no greater victory right now in the world for the left, for the liberals, for the corrupt mind of the evil. In other words, for the devil. There would be no greater reward than to get somebody like a Ben Shapiro on side. Whatever he's making now, multiply it by 10 or 20. If he's a millionaire now, the guy will be worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, just by flipping sides, throwing Israel under the bus, throwing the Jewish nation under the bus, taking the kippah off his head, and starting to spew the same garbage and ask questions instead of providing answers. My friends, it's clear as day. Choose your friends carefully and recognize who your boss is. And also recognize, I want to reiterate, that if your boss or the person in authority is coming down on you, recognize that they're failing and recognize that the consequence of that failure is tremendous. And you would not want to switch positions with that person ever. Even though you would do a better job, you weren't put in that position. And there's a reason you weren't put in that position. It's not your test. It's that person's test. Your test is not to be in a position of authority. His job is to be in a position of authority. And if he's failing, then you should feel sorry for him. And by feeling sorry for him, you won't compound the problem and take on an additional problem by starting to criticize them and starting to throw them under the bus, because then you enter into a vicious cycle of he was wrong and therefore I wronged him. And then it goes back and forth and they get worse and the situation spirals out of control. And then you wonder how you got there in the first place. Put all that aside. Be the guy, be the Ben Shapiro, be the one who provides answers, be the one who provides solutions, be the one who brings truth into the world. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing Shabbat. Let's get ready for Pesach. It's going to be a game changer, my friend. We'll chat on Sunday. Thank you for spending time with us on the Trust Factor podcast. If you've heard something today that moved you, save this episode and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss upcoming conversations that challenge, empower, and uplift. And if you're on social media, connect with us. Leave your thoughts. Drop a quote that resonated with you. Hashtag the Trust Factor podcast. Until next time, keep growing in your trust and keep living with purpose. I'm Jesse Revivo, and this has been the Trust Factor podcast. Thanks for listening.